Podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
This week on the SRC Podcast, we cover all things from the final round of the Cup group stage, look at all the seed ends, and preview some tasty semi-finals. Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the SRC Podcast. Joining me, Big M, as always, the one and only Double R, Mr. Rob Rees. Good evening, my friend. How are we?
Yeah, all good, mate. It's all good. We're recording on a Thursday night, yeah.
I know, it's a little bit different, but it's got a whole different feel to it this week because it's semi-final time. But before that, we do have the final round. Well, 3/4 of the final round of fixtures to get stuck into. So starting, well, obviously the early kickoff. So we'll go into a Pool A to start it off, and I believe Cardiff came into this game not having a chance of even getting into the played semi-final. So it is more or less just for the appeal. Just show up, have a good performance, and let's see how we go. And in all fairness to them, they did give it a good go. They did put out a few young boys. You know, we can't argue. We can't hold that against them, considering everything's going on. Obviously, there was a hooker on the bench who we'll get into in a bit, and a lock as well, who were both fresh from playing, you know, Cardiff under-18s in the Rag Championship. So, you know, there was some inexperience in there. You know, it's not like the week before where you had Cody Domikowski and you know, Tom Harper starting in the front row. Different feel this week. But in all fairness to them, they put up a massive fight, and and obviously they hosted Pontypool, in case anyone doesn't know. And they got off to a flyer, in all fairness. You know, 14-0 up, pretty sharpish. They lost Gavin Parry, their hooker, in the first 5 minutes, so the replacement, Nichols something, Ngasso. That's what we're going with. You know, he comes on and he scores a try within 10 minutes. You know, that the second one for Cardiff, and they're really, really in the ascendancy. But then, no, just he's done many times for Pontypool. Morgan Lloyd just flips a switch and he scores just a rapid quick-fire hat-trick. 21-14 to Pontypool at the half, and they never let it go from there. You know, Cardiff, they did fight back a bit. Nichols and Gasso did get another try. So, you know, 2 tries on debut off the bench. Not a bad shout. Is you know, Cardiff have already got Tom Howe coming through. There's a bit of a hooker factory down there now. But yeah, Pontypool head on. Morgan Allen with a try for them as well to finish at 31-19. Solid victory for them. Didn't quite get a 6-pointer, but they're showing good signs of improvement and they're getting results.
Yeah, I think it was probably something we expected. Like I said, that Evan Nichols and Gasso really did stand out for me. Again, you see him in stature, and he's such a short built. You can see he's got a bit about him. You know, he's got a bit of pace, got that power, and ultimately he scored in 2 when your side's up against it. Puts a bit of confidence into you as well. As you say, Cardiff are already out of this one, so I think it was a bit of a difficult one. Pontypool just needed to get that win and basically seal the top spot. Not the top spot, obviously the top spot out of the 3 sides that were still going. Newport already wrapped it up, so the bonus point was effectively irrelevant, or the additional bonus point. But I think you can see here just the effect that Kieran Meek has on this squad.
Oh, 100%.
You know, first game back, I think it was 10 weeks. And, like, he just marshals it. And then, like I said, Pontypool have looked a lot better with, you know, Dylan KG coming in, Sam Scarf, Morgan Lloyd ever present. You know, they've had Hugh Anderson in recent weeks. These are boys that have been playing pro rugby and consistently. I mean, Morgan Lloyd, I still don't think he should be playing in this league. He's still far too good for it, and Dragons need to really look at him. You know, he's a man playing in confidence and scores a try every other game from scrum half. You know what I mean? So I think this is a nice little result, really. I think Cardiff will be relatively happy with performance. You know, a lot of youngsters standing up. Pontypool did the job, got top two through to the cup semi-finals. Obviously got to play an away game, but yeah, I think you're seeing Chiefs sort of his mark being made now at Pontypool. They're a really gritty side. And it's just a shame that Cardiff haven't done much in the last 4 weeks. They played that league game in round one against Ebervale, playing a really strong side. Completely changed it out. Was that the Newport game? I think it was. Was it the first game was against Newport?
I will get it up for you now.
Them change the side, and they've changed the side pretty much every round.
Yeah, they went up to RGC and
RGC,
they got a bit of a thump in, yeah.
Yeah. Then change it again. So like I said, that was a change squad. They played Newport, change it again. You're like, oh guys, come on. So that's the only disappointment out of Cardiff's Cup campaign for me.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Pontypool getting the job done, they actually needed that 5-pointer. They needed that Morgan Allen try to get them up onto 13 because the win, let's say an RGC win over Quins at home wasn't, like way out there. It obviously was on the cards. I believe you might have even picked it. But the actual result that came through was astonishing. And I don't really think there's much to really pick at by here. But 54-19 to RGC. And what hurts is the fact that we were leading early on. I think it was 12-7. RGC got the first try. We scored 2 back. And then, what was it, Murphy's Law or whatever is what could go wrong, did go wrong. Gabe McDonald ended up playing most of the game at fly half. It was just one disaster after another. And, I went back through all the results and, for games we played, at least 60 minutes with 15 men. I think 38 was the most points we conceded. So to concede 54, it was just disastrous. And, I'm hoping the boys have just gone back and said, you know what, let it go. We're not learning nothing from this game. I know we do say that about a few fixtures, but when they do come along, you do get beatdowns, you do get great results. Obviously there's the flip side of it as well. So Quins have got, obviously they were in the semi-finals anyway. They focus on it now, but RGC really went for it. And you know what? If this was played the same time as Cardiff Pontypool, I could understand because it is that chance again to the cup.
Yeah.
But even knowing the cup was out of their reach, they still went for it, which I think is really, really a powerful sign for them. That they did it because they could, not because they had to, sort of thing. It was a mindset. So it was just a massive, massive result for them.
Yeah, it's one of those ones. I think when I seen how it was lining up beforehand, like you said, I predicted RGC, and you can sort of see the tail of the tape. Quins have their sort of set team and how they want to play about that sort of game. Close, early doors, bit of a slower pace. They're in it, they're getting those sort of structured tries. Then once the game opens up a bit, completely rips open. You have a few player changes you don't really want to make in an ideal world. All of a sudden, RGC on their fast track is not the place to go. I understand them wanting to make sure, like ultimately they were out of the cup at this point, because like you said, the Pontypool result and Newport already being through condemns them to a maximum of the plate. But I feel like a home tie at the plate for them is huge because they don't seem to struggle as much on the road this season, but it's just so much easier for them and obviously makes it so much more difficult for the opposition. They get, 1,000 people up there as well. So you have a good support because obviously no one travels away for them, really. And that's why I can see them putting their foot down. Quins, like you said, I think it'll be one you just go back in and go, boys, doesn't matter. No bearing on where we are. We go again. Bit of a Ospreys, Scarlets semi-final on the cards as a result. But yeah, I don't know. I'm frustrated by Quins at the moment. They started the season so well. I just don't know. I just don't know if it's a depth thing, if it's a fitness thing. a bit of everything all piling into one, and it's just like, well, I worry that they might disappear out this plate competition, and then you go back to a league where quite easily, if they carry this form through, then they're going to struggle to keep that top six.
Yeah. So what I do know from this is obviously Quins rely on their pack a lot, and they especially rely on their scrum. And this was the first game that neither Reece Fawcett or Sam O'Connor was in the 23. For Lucid, Sean Evans, who signed, as an open side, is playing hooker. Now, I know Keanu Evans, he was with us last season, but he was playing back row. He's transitioning to hooker. He's been transitioning with Ammanford. He's had to be pulled into the 23 just for numbers, because we don't have, because Lewis Morgan and Lewis Jones, the two regular boys, they're not there. Obviously, Isaac Young is the academy representative, and he's been injured. So there are some significant injuries in that front row, but not enough to really give this result. I mean, it probably stopped them having a way back into the match once RGC had, gone into a decent lead. But it's not something that really should be happening, and problems to resolve. But we'll come to that another game. We'll come to that this weekend, actually. So Pool A finishes. So we got Newport top with 18 and Pontypool with 13. They had 2 wins and 2 draws, securing second place. Those two go into the cup. RGC with 13 points also, but 2 wins and 2 losses. And then Carmarthen Quins, 1 win, 1 draw, 2 losses. Those two in the plate. Quins with 6 points. Cardiff with 0 points, rooted to the bottom of the table. So over in Pool B, and we had the mega clash.
Oof.
We had Ebbw Vale with a toddler fly half against Llandovery.
Ooh.
And what was it? Not even 24 hours before, kickoff. And bear in mind, Ebbw Vale normally have their team sheet out on a Thursday night. If I'm called, they really, really go early. No sign of nothing, and then the game's been cancelled due to weather. But I've seen on other reports that the game was cancelled for the pitch being flooded. So I'm not actually sure the official reason for this game being called off, but it was really upsetting for me in terms of the permutations in the group, because what we will see from Swansea had an opportunity to steal that second spot, and because of this postponement, it kind of killed it. Automatic 0-0 draw, 2 points. Llandovery were always finishing top. That was never in doubt. But Ebbw Vale taking those 2 points, going from 12 to 14. Like, don't get me wrong, I'd back Ebbw Vale to get at least a point in that game, even with the aforementioned fly half issue that they've got. I think it hurts the competition a little bit when a game of that importance, ends up being postponed. But we live and we learn, and hopefully we'll get some form of all-weather pitch at some point down there, as we discussed a few weeks ago. On to the other game, and Swansea against Bridgend. Both sides pushing for, this plate competition. I believe they were both on 6 or 7 points. I think Swansea were on 7, Bridgend were on 6. So there was really all to play for. Bridgend in a decent bit of form. Swansea, doing their job quietly. But did you see it? Did you see a 6-pointer for Swansea in this?
Truth be told, no, probably not. I think I went Swansea, and I said I think they got a shot at it. I think I actually said the reason that they weren't going to go up to that cup spot was because I just did not see Ebbw Vale taking anything less than the required point against Llandovery. But yeah, I think this is a really professional job. Again, a bit like what RGC did, just to a slightly lesser extent, really. You go out at this stage, the game is basically you're like, hang on a minute, what's happening? It's sort of the rumour mill starts coming round on the game being called off. And then it gets canned and think, all right, they go out, they absolutely get the points going, which is what Swansea need to do. Ultimately, they've just fallen away at times in that sort of cutting edge that they had right at the start of the season that was worrying every side. But equally, I think Bridgend, again, I've showed a lot of fight here against a Swansea side that's at home, playing some good rugby, and probably had a little bit less to play for, in theory. And yeah, I like Bridgend's replacement hooker, Mr.
Yeah,
Scott Baldwin.
I know. I'll be honest, I'm not sure what actually happened with the Bridgend team sheet because following on socials, it was like two different players came on that were named in the original 23. So I'm not sure. I think I'll have to go over their website and have a quick look at what team actually turned out to them. But yes, Mr. Scott Baldwin was named on the bench. You know, I just hope that he was registered to play. I think that's
Yeah.
these the legalities of the game. You've got to follow procedure. It's got to be done. But a hell of a performance for Swansea. What was it? 45-29. That's huge given the levels we're really talking about. Because you know what? We probably backed Swansea more for the fact they were at home rather than we thought they were going to be that superior. So for them to actually pull it off is brilliant and is a bit of a warning sign for the rest of these sides in the plate. So it's going to be a very, very interesting semi-final weekend, especially since their game's actually been moved from their second home of Dunvant, which
Swansea are taking the rugby around the region.
I know they really are. They start calling them the Ospreys soon. Okay, so if we have a look at Pool B then, Llandovery top, 3 wins, 1 draw, 20 points. Ebbw Vale, 2 wins, 2 draws, 14 points, both in the cup. Third, Swansea, 2 wins, draw, loss with 13. Bridgend, 1 win, 3 losses, 6. Those two into the plate. And propping up the bottom, Aberafan, 4 losses, but 4 bonus points. And one of them was a try bonus point. So, they didn't go without trying. And I know we've mentioned this already. So we've blasted through this pretty quick. I'm liking it. So please like, share, subscribe, do your thing. On to the semi-finals. And do we start in the plate and build up to the cup? What do we do?
Let's start in the plate. Let's start in the bum cup.
And the bum, no. This is the only competition of any value here. You want to win the plate. The cup has been won many, many times. The plate has never been won, my friend.
No one, the kids at their school sports day, and they're like, yeah, you're first, you're second. Have a ribbon. Have a ribbon. Have a ribbon. You didn't even fucking finish the race. Have a ribbon.
Oh, this is really, really harsh. Okay, so we'll start up north, just because we can. RGC will be hosting Bridgend. Obviously, RGC really, really buoyed by that win over Quins, and they've played some good rugby. Obviously, Cardiff did end up losing all the games and not collecting a single point. But, in that first Cardiff's first game of the cup run, winning 34-5, that was a statement. They really have gone out of their way and they've shown they are more than capable of mixing it. And even though Bridgend are improving, this trip up north, we say, every other week whenever there's a game up here, it takes its toll. And I'm finding it hard to see past RGC here. It's going to be attack versus attack, really, because I don't really see what else Bridgend are going to offer, because their defense hasn't exactly been a strong point for them this season. Taking a sip of his cup before he goes. Here we are. Come on.
Totally agree, Matt.
That's it. Just totally agree.
I'm joking, Matt. No, do you know what? I think this is going to make it a really good game. I think we've seen RGC starting to make a bit of progress this season, both on and off the road. Obviously, this is at home anyway. Some really good crowds. You know, 1,100 plus, you know, being reported, and that's fantastic for both the wider game and for RGC, both as a support atmosphere and financial point of view. But then you've got Bridgend as well. Are going to make a bit of a game of this. There was a very good game up there. I got a feeling Bridgend won it last season at Christmas. It was the most watched game of the season in terms of television figures. But it was a really close game, that was. It was only like one score in it, I think it was. And I think we're going to see something similar. I think we can see a game here that's going to be like 38-33 or something along those like crazy lines, because RGC want to rip it open. There's not going to be a set piece battle. Neither side is strong or particularly strong at the set piece. Bridgend have had a bit of poor discipline or a patch of poor discipline, and RGC similar. And that all opens this up, you know. All of a sudden, you got RGC might score 2-3 quick tries, but Bridgend will come battling back. They have their little patches, both teams. They can't quite hold momentum for full periods. But I'm interested to see how this game starts. I say Quinn started strong, had a few changes. I think Bridgend's score on paper at the moment maybe slightly stronger behind that sort of pack. So I'm interested to see if Bridgend have a similarly quick start. But I'm going RGC along with you. I had a little look at Sicky John Harris's predictions, and you'll never guess, Matt.
Well, he can't go for a draw because somebody's got to go. That's the thing.
Oh no, fuck up, Matt. I was going to
So,
leave it.
after extra time, is it?
Yeah, bets are only included up to 80 minutes. Yeah, no cash out. No, actually, John has decided to help us split this decision. He's gone Bridgend.
Oh, good man, John. Good man.
He's very kind like that.
Yeah, wherever you are, John.
He
Wherever
said he's
you are, we're thinking
supporting
of
his
you.
fellow Ospreys region.
That sounds like not something an Osprey would. Okay, yeah, something an Osprey would do. Okay, we'll go with that.
Oh, you're
No,
really trying to upset Ospreys fans. Ospreys fans, I apologise. He's a Turk. I'll complain in the crease 16 letters that I get.
this is really, that's going a bit off topic, but yeah, but okay.
It'll be nice to your members, Martin. Customer's always right.
Yeah.
I am technically your customer. even though I pay no money.
Exactly. Okay. So, I mean, the only really thing I got left to say on RGC Bridgend is it's been a long time since RGC have won a meaningful game like this. You know, that cup win was quite a few years ago now. So how they'll handle being favourites, does this version of RGC have that mental toughness? I think that's the one question that we will see answered. Because the only other game we had was the playoff last season where Quinn's beat them up there in the, what was it? I can't remember the name of the round. The first one.
The wild
card. That's the one.
Yeah.
So
I think that's as you say. They've got a relatively young squad as well, right? So it's, again, there won't be many players in this squad who have experience of big playoff games. Like if we were talking like the players, you know, like your Dion Jones, Delwyn Jones, Avon Bagshaw was still around, people like that. You have a few people trailing off the back of that cup, one possibly the cup win, and people like Avon Bagshaw that they actually won the cup with, but start to pick up the odd playoff game victory, because you have to manage them differently. You don't need to chase bonus points. And I don't think RGC intentionally chase those bonus points, but it just comes to them naturally. So they have to change their mindset, because you can't just be like, oh, we're going to attack everything here, boys, and we just go and see what happens. Because sometimes you have to go, hang on, let's take the points, because it doesn't matter about tries today. It matters about who's higher on the scoreboard when it ticks on to 80 and the referee blows his whistle. And that's the only thing, as you say, that worries me. I think there's a few more winners in Bridgend, but I don't see Bridgend as that winning team at the moment.
Yeah. Interesting. The other game is Swansea technically at home to Carmarthen Quins. So obviously we know the malarkey with St. Helens. They're not allowed to play there, even though rugby is being currently played there by different types of teams. So they second home in Dunvant, and for whatever reason, I'm not sure if Dunvant are playing or what. Or whoever's playing there this weekend, if for whatever reason they can't play there either, so the game is now in Gowerton. So they really are having a good old trek here. But one interesting thing I do have is the Carmarthen 23 now.
Buying the camp.
So if I run it from something, so we got Reece Fawcett, Sean Evans, Connor Allen, front row, Phillips and Taylor in the lock, back row of Richards, Ben Williams, and Millen. Good pack. It's a very solid pack. Happy with that. Halfbacks Lewis and Ivan Davis. Centers Jack Howells, Elan Phillips, and then a back three of Thomas Williams, Dylan Richards, and Elio George. Bench is probably going to be the one area that's going to cause issues. So you've got Keanu Evans, who we've already mentioned. He's transitioning to hooker. He's only had a handful of games playing hooker at SRC. And, he's still adjusting. Anyone who's transitioned.
Registered on the system, Martin.
Yes, he's registered.
Hey, have I me boat, you fuckers.
But, anyone who's transitioned positions like that will know it's not as easy. Even if your body's physically capable of doing, the job, the technicalities of it are, they range so much. So, not the greatest pool there. And we could see a debut for young loosehead Hudson Nevin. He's still in school. He's in the under-20 squad as well. He is attached to the Scarlets, but I don't think his senior academy contract will start till June or July or whenever it is. So it's very interesting to see how this boy goes. I wouldn't imagine him getting on until the last 10 minutes unless Reece Fawcett is really dying on his knees. So then some usual suspects then. You got Ivan James, Ryan Bean, Yestin Wood, Dylan Rowe, Bowen Clark, and Ryan Davis fills off the 23. Yestin Wood is growing as a player. He's early 20s now, so he's coming along. Dylan Rowe hasn't featured that much, same as Bowen Clark, another young boy. So the bench isn't as strong as it could be, quite obviously, given the injuries and given the fact we're going for players that realistically, if we had a choice, we'd probably look somewhere else. But you're probably looking into the Premiership even to pick some boys up. I know obviously Tom Curry has turned out for Llandovery this season. He's probably someone that would, could slot in a docket if needed. But, if this game comes down to the forwards and it comes down to that forward battle, I think the Queen's Park has got more than enough to do it. So it's more of a question of what are Swansea going to bring? Are they going to bring the same style of attack that they did against Bridgend, or are we going to see something very similar to what we saw at Dunvant earlier this season when Quins won 17-14?
Do you know, it's always awkward because sometimes knowing one team can sometimes sway worse than if you know none or you want to know the two. But I just think at the moment Swansea haven't got too many major injury problems, and I think Quins are struggling a bit more up front. That's where their usual strength is. I don't think Quins' strength is behind. They've had some good players. I mean, like Callum Woolley this season. Whenever he's turned out for them, has been absolutely outstanding. Gay McDonald's back on the rise. It's good to see Yori Badham's been back after long-term injuries. But I get a feeling this game's won up front in probably two places. I think the scrum and probably the breakdown. And the reason I leave the line out of this is I sort of get that I think both sides will have a bit of give and take. I don't think that's going to be the deciding factor as such, unless one team can just turn it on. I think the scrums would be interesting, as you say, to see how someone like Reece Fawcett goes, because there's someone extremely young and inexperienced coming behind him. So they'll expect the big game, 70 minutes, maybe 80. Maybe that's what they're looking for out of him, in fairness. And he's more than capable of doing it, but it depends on the shift you're having to put in and how many scrums and stuff like that you're having to deal with, throughout the game. And then I go to the loose, and where we've seen players like, Sean Evans and Lewis Millen that have to be moved around, and Sean's obviously gone to the front row as of late, is I think Quinns just lost that bit of a balance in the back row and around, how they're attacking the collisions, how they're attacking, slowing the ball down, stuff like that. And if we get the same Swansea back row as they started against Bridgend, which is Shenton, Giannini and Hopkins, for me, that's a perfect blend. You've got your massive marauding ball carrying number 8. You've got your 7 who's, leaner, really quick, over the ball, causing problems, your true jackler. And then someone like Shenton, who puts the hard yards in. He's a solid carrier. He's not completely destructive. But then on top of that, just tackles the other way. Just constantly. He's just a rock in defence. And I just got a feeling that's going to be a strong area if Swansea names something like that, mixed with the boys like Matt Prothero, basically, pro within the last 18 months in the sort of the back line. So, yeah. For me, this is just Swansea having a little bit too much. And I'd also, I just, looking ahead, I just think that Swansea RGC, if I'm going on my predictions, is a better final. I think if Quinns go through, I just think it goes a bit mismatched, and they either get hammered or we have a bit of a scrappy game, if I'm honest.
Yeah. I can 100% see that. Like, this fixture by year, like I called it a few weeks ago. I wanted a Swansea Quinns, final. Obviously, it's coming in the semi, which is, unfortunate for me. I totally agree with you in terms of that Swansea back row. I know, it weren't that long ago. Ewan Shenton was with the Scarlets. Luca Giannini, the same. What a lot of people don't realize is Luca chose not to become a pro rugby player. It wasn't that he wasn't good enough or he was let go. He didn't want to pursue it. He was getting minutes, those initial few games for the Scarlets off the bench, and he looked good. And honestly, it's going to be difficult. I think pack for pack, the starting pack is for Quinns is how well they can perform. I do agree with you that balance is slightly off there. Sean Evans is that typical, proper open side, that true number 7. Whoever it's been, whether it's been Ben Williams or Lewis Millen, Ben Williams more maybe 6.5, whatever you want to call him. Lewis Millen, obviously, he's a much better 8. So that balance can be an issue. I mean, the only saving grace that I think for Quinns is the fact that they do have their first choice tight heads, and they do have a proper lock to come off the bench. That's in terms of that scrum battle in that pack. That's probably the only thing that's giving me enough hope to say a Quinns win. Because obviously, Gabe McDonald is with the Scarlets this week. I know he was never going to play in this game, but you can say Karen Leggett-Jones is there as well. Was it Johan Jones, he's been injured most of the season, but he played 3 games for Quinns at his comeback game. He's gone straight up to Scarlets. Callum Woolley, GB7, Yori Badham, injured again, pulled a hamstring. He's out for another 4 weeks, I think. So even though these boys are, they are, signed to the Scarlets, they're Quinns players. They've been turned out. They would be doing, if they fit, they turn out for Quinns first. But yeah, this. So you're going for an RGC Swansea final, is it?
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I don't know, that's actually quite an exciting little prospect. I don't know whether I'm overthinking this, but I feel the plate has more potential than the cup in terms of being quality rugby and being, from a neutral perspective.
Like, from a neutral perspective, even though we can probably arguably say RGC Swansea is the most likely final, it's not too far-fetched to say either Bridgend or Carmarthen could win these games either.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're stepping into, the cup, like, it's a slightly different prospect. But there's one thing we need to get sorted.
Sicky's prediction?
Sicky's prediction.
Yes. Unfortunately, he obviously can't go for the draw, but he's going with Carmarthen. He's siding. He thinks Carmarthen are going to cause an upset. You can't even call it a cup set. The plate set. Oh.
So that's the plate, nice and wrapped up. I know I'm getting ahead of ourselves here, but the fact that we don't know where the final is being played, as of yet, is annoying as shit. But I think it takes that advantage for RGC away. Should they, when they inevitably, they finish as the highest, I believe they're the highest seeded team in this. So, it would be an RGC home game if it was done like that. If it's played anywhere else, I think it's such a different prospect. And farewell to them.
And I think that's just it. There's been heavy rumour around using regional grounds, but again, that still raises a question about RGC. Where do they play? Because the nearest regional grounds, Christ, is that going to be Park of Scarlets?
Probably.
Because let's be honest, there isn't one in Swansea at the moment because St. Helens is unavailable. They inquired about using St. Helens this week, but it was unavailable to use. So even if you said, St. Helens is thing, that's right on the south coast. You've got Rodney Parade. Oh, look, that is pretty much right on the south coast. And the Arms Park is right on the south coast. So you're probably looking, it's going to be Park of Scarlets or Rodney Parade as the nearest regional grounds.
Yeah.
And that's it's fucking 4 hours to Evervale from RGC. So I mean, you had another 40 minutes to get the Rodney Parade. I mean, I don't know what is going to be like to get down from Colwyn Bay to Llanelli, but Christ, again, it's not bloody very good. Yeah. And as you say, that can be make or break.
Yeah. Regardless of what does actually happen with it is, if it does go to a regional for the finals, it'd be nice if we could get a double header. I think that'd be, because even though it's so short notice, I think if you could get all 4 teams fans or as many as you can just into the one ground, because if you say you split it over Rodney Parade and would it be Rodney? Yeah, it'd be Rodney Parade or Park of Scarlets and one or whatever other. You're going to be talking. You fill in 10,000+ stadiums with 1,000 people at most. So it's going to look at if you can just over double that, even though it's still not great, it feels a bit better.
Well, that's just it, right? You look at last year's final. It was a Thursday night, and the team who has all the support had to travel an hour and a half. There was just shy of 2,000, I think just over 2,000, around the 2,000 mark at Church Bank. You're thinking, do you know what? If that's played on a Saturday afternoon, even if it's still at Llandovery, you get an extra 1,000 people there. Minimum, if not 1,500. You're pushing 3,500 people, sort of thing. And that's an absolutely jam-packed ground there, and the atmosphere is fantastic. I got no problem with it being at a club ground. What I've got a problem with is when there's like everyone's like, where do we? It could be here, it could be there. Set it out in stone at the start. There's a highest seed final, etc., and we go from there. Because I'll be honest, there's part of me that wants RGC to host this final. They get a good brand of rugby. It's an all-weather pitch, so there's no chance of any delay or cancellation.
No, that's weather.
There's a fantastic crowd, which is again why you want to showcase in this. They've got the facilities, obviously, to do the TV anyway, if they wanted to televise the plate and the cup final in some description. I don't think they will do both, but, it'd be nice to see RGC host the final, if I'm honest.
Yeah, that would be an ideal scenario should they get through. We're just pretending as if Bridgend not existing at the minute. Okay, so if we get into the cup and let's just get these through. So obviously, Llandovery at home to Pontypool. You know, I know. I've certainly said that Lee Rees and Johan Hughes completely change this Llandovery team, and there's no doubt that unless one of them is held behind bars, they're both starting this one. And as good as Pontypool are getting with that influencer chief there, Llandovery are just too good everywhere to really lose this one. You know, the only sort of advantage Pooler really have is the fact that, you know, Llandovery didn't play this weekend, so you know they've had that bigger break. But outside of that, I mean, it's if we had the bookies odds here, I think Pontypool wouldn't be extraordinary, but it's a long shot. You know, it's not in favour whatsoever. Llandovery they're stacked, and they've got their two workmen, their two generals that pull the strings.
I think that's just it as well. As you're going up the Church Bank, it's a bit of a different prospect. Llandovery know how to win big games there as well. And I just have a feeling they're going for the cup this year. I'm not saying they're not going for the league, or they've given up on the league, but I feel that they go for the cup because, again, that's what they knew they had an opportunity. They thought, right, well, we can get 18 points on the board and travel to Ebervale and put the pressure on them. Obviously, it didn't plan out that way, so they still sealed top spot anyway. They then backed themselves to play through Church Bank through the final. And I just, Lee Rees is retiring at the end of the season. Wouldn't surprise me if players like Berry and Watkins, any of the Warren boys packed it in as well. So it sort of feels this is like a curtain call season for a bit of a dynasty at Llandovery. To coin another American phrase, like crowbarring into the podcast recently. And I just don't feel that Pontypool, whilst they've solidified up front, there's still a bit of an issue with that midfield duo. They're not quite settled there, and it's not quite quality assured yet. So I'm going with Llandovery here. And you've mentioned Bucky's odds, which is ironic because he's actually gone for Pontypool.
I know he's gone for a few upsets this week, and
Yes.
when you're a betting man like him, he's down in the doldrums.
Yeah.
Betting on the favourite is not going to pull him out. He's got to go for some underdog wins. He really has, and he's probably going to do it in the other semi-final as well. But the question is, who is the underdog in this semi-final? Because it's on a Sunday. Obviously, that is something that's a bit of a peeve for people. Played at Rodney Parade, Newport, at home to Ebervale. Now, I don't know which way to swing, which way the game is going to swing. Obviously, Newport reigning league champions, Ebervale falling short of quite regularly. I'm sorry, it does need to be said, but it's a semi-final stage. Ebu can win a semi-final.
Would you like to be helped by Bucky's decision?
I mean, I don't think I can be helped by Bucky's decision because I've got a bit of annoyance with one of these clubs at the minute, so I'm not going to go for them.
See, Bucky's gone for Ebervale.
Has he now?
He has. Bucky thinks that the away teams are going to get into people this week. And I got a feeling that you're agreeing with him. Not that this is anything to do with a lack of professionalism around front row replacements and the digital system not actually allowing you to record 3 hookers on a match day, and that's why a game couldn't be replayed, and that's what fucked Quins up. But
that was, you should really go into adverts and stuff. Be that TNC man at the end. Here we go.
Martin incentive.
Oh Christ! I haven't heard Trevor in years. I just don't listen to the radio no more. Thank God. But yeah, come on, you're the Ebervale man. Pump us up. why are Ebu going to do this? I mean, we've already touched on they've got a junior fly half in there.
Yeah.
Like, what's, you know,
So I can't say too much, Martin, but I'd like to be on a fly on the bedroom wall at training tonight. To fly off on the Bedford wall, a bedroom wall. But now Will Ford has been the youngster pushing forwards. There's good news. Evan Lloyd's likely to be 6 to 8 weeks. So the overall picture is he isn't done for the season. I guess at this stage that could be a pod exclusive. Good news, Ev. Eh.
I mean, what would that actually be? That would be like the quarterfinals of the playoffs, something like that.
Depends if you're falling in that 6 weeks, right? I mean, there's basically another month before, excluding any possible final, another month before the next game anyway for Ebervale. So that's 4 weeks done straight away. Ironically, their next fixtures is Newport as well.
Ooh.
But yeah, this is a tasty one because they played at Rodney Parade in a fixture was it last season? Christ, yeah, it was. And it was part of the 3 games in 6 days, and it
Yeah.
just it bends it a little bit because you sort of going, well, the rotation, the bodies. In terms of who the favourites are in this one, I think it's massively Newport, if I'm honest. I'm not saying the odds would be ridiculous, but I would definitely be saying Newport are favourites in this. The Rodney Parade surface massively favours them. It does. They've got a fit squad. Obviously, they're the form team because they're actually having games to be played. You know, Ebervale have had 2 games not go ahead in this cup section. You know, they lost to Cardiff in what would be round 1 in obviously the league game they put in, and got past Aberavon in the other. So there's a lot of mixed form and mixed fortune there for Ebervale. Mix that in with the fact that, you know, you've got 3 players out injured for the season. Dorian Jones is no longer there. Evans definitely out at the moment, and you know you're juggling a few different people. That, you know, I just think that bit of team cohesion and the pitch change just suits Newport, and that's why I got to be honest, head over heart here. I think Newport are winning this one. I know, Martin. I know.
Wow, I can't believe. No, I refuse. I refuse to believe it. You're going for. I've already penciled you in for an Ebu win. Wow, this is not good.
Do you know what? I don't know whether it is. I'm trying to think logically around who's actually the favourite and stuff like that, but it also just feels a bit flat. Nobody at Ebervale really seems to be talking about the cup at the moment. You know, there's not a lot of talk in the pubs. Normally, you got boys saying, "Oh, a good win for Ebervale at the weekend," or this or that. It'll be 3 months between home games by the time they actually play at home next.
I mean,
You
what
know
is
what I
it?
mean?
You've played like 3 games in the last 8 weeks or something like that. It's
Yeah, exactly. Because, you know, the Llandovery game canned, the Aberavon game moved to Merthyr, the Swansea game canned. You're like, oh, hang on, you know, what are you supposed to be doing with this? You know, the Cardiff game away, which was a loss. Then it was a month before that with Llandovery away, which was a win. So everything's been mishmash since Christmas, effectively. And it just seems to be no excitement. I mean, the fact that all that's going on with the shenanigans in Pool A, with, you know, with Quins having a game cancelled with Pooler, they couldn't play another game against Newport, which should have been replayed, and was the competition committee said it should have been replayed or offered to replay it. They just ran out of time. It all just feels a bit of a shambles. And even up to this week, where people at Ebervale are arguing over what fucking day it is. You've had the Pontypridd, was it the Gwent Post or whatever it is? They put in one of their articles that it was fucking Friday. The supporters coach up until today was going on Saturday. Newport have said that it's playing on Sunday. All we need now is it to be moved and fucking for a Thursday night for TV, and we've got a full house of bingo.
so it's being played right now. We don't even
Oh,
know.
sorry, yeah, Ebervale are out. There we are. That's a fucking bombshell here.
Oh no, I'm surprised you're going for Newport. I mean, they have chopped and changed quite a bit through this cup. No,
I think they settle down now. Though I think Newport are smart. They're a smart team, right? I think they know what they want. They've swapped around knowing that they can in certain circumstances. They knew they had a bit of a bye week, so they could rest players up as well. I know that doesn't always work. Sometimes you want to be playing through, but a bye week sitting back, seeing what sort of happens. You just get that feeling. Like you look at the Dragons allocation they're pretty much all available as well. It's not like, oh my god, they're bare bones. I think there's going to be a fully stacked team for Newport this week.
Well, only the team sheet will tell. Well, thank you guys for listening. Thank you, Rob, for joining me. We will come back with some analysis of the semi-finals and build up for some juicy cup and plate final action. And hopefully we'll know where they've been playing. So please like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you next week. Bye, guys.
Super.